What I'm telling you I'm doing is I'm only looking at the people that have posted. And if I like it, if I believe in it, if it's going to be valuable to my listener, you, if it's going to be valuable to you, then I'll bring them on.
Most hosts never achieve the results they hoped for. They're falling short on listenership and monetization, meaning their message isn't being heard and their show ends up costing them money. This podcast was created to help you grow your listenership and make money while you're at it. Get ready to take notes. Here's your host, Adam Adams.
What's up, podcaster? It's your host, Adam A. Adams, and we are going to be talking about you getting guests for your show. I'm sure you're going to learn something, even if you've already gotten a few guests for your show. I'm sure you're going to learn something. Here's what happened this last week, and I had been telling you that I have been about 4 months ahead of schedule with recorded episodes. Okay, so I recorded interview episodes. I recorded so much that I was recording for June back in February. And so I was like 4 months ahead. But because I was so far ahead, I actually slowed down and somehow got to the next week where my teammate Jen, who works for me, she reaches out to me. Hey, Adam, are you going to do any interview episodes? And I'm like, what are you talking about? We have months worth of recorded episodes for interviews, months and months. And she's like, well, not anymore, because you kind of stopped for a while and not anymore, Adam. So that's what I was dealing with just this last week. And my mom launched a podcast also very, very recently. And one of her big concerns in the beginning was, how do I get guests? What if nobody wants to be on my show? And a lot of people say that too. Like, you're coming to this field and you haven't booked any guests yet. And you're just wondering, do I even have credibility? How am I going to get anyone on my show? How am I going to get anybody wanting to be on my show? Because right now I don't have any listeners, or even where Adam was, I have a decent amount of listener base, but I got to a place where I was like, oh shit. I didn't realize that I was so behind. I didn't realize that I was giving up on these and didn't have them always coming in. So let's talk a little bit about some SOPs, standard operating procedure. Let's talk about your team. Let's talk about how to reach out to people. Let's talk about asking for referrals. We will also mention a couple of websites that support you in getting better guests, and even social media groups that can help you get some guests on your show. We'll also talk about a calendar link. We'll talk about the email invitation and the process of kind of getting people on the show. And I want to mention that you ought to over communicate, especially with podcasters, because most podcasters are also entrepreneurial. This means that much more than half of the people that are podcasting, they have a personality profile of basically done is better than perfect. Let's get this out. Let's move fast. We can always fix it later. I might not know all the answers, but I'm going to go ahead and start. It's an entrepreneurial mindset. There are entrepreneurs that have a high attention to detail, but most of us, me included, would rather have this done yesterday. And we don't care how it's done. We just want it to be out of the way. We just want to see something once and say, let's get that out of the way. Let's check that off the box. It's bothering me. It's stressing me out. I want to get it out of the way. I don't care how it's done. I just want to get it done. So I want to talk about over communicating with your podcast guests, because they are entrepreneurial. It's not that they're stupid or anything like that, but they are moving a million miles an hour. And frequently they're going to miss your instructions. And so I want to talk about over communication. And then that's the end of the episode. So we've got a bunch of stuff happening. So let's talk about, how do you find guests? How do you even know who is a good guest or where to get a good guest? Well, for me, as I got into this place of, oh shit moment, where I'm understanding that I've got to start getting people back on the show and having those interviews again, because it has been several months. And as I felt stressed and some anxiety about getting people on the show, my brain went to immediate brainstorm mode. Like, what can I do? And here's a few things that I did for reaching out. I went and talked to somebody that works on my team who basically does private messaging for our clients. So basically, when I say we do private messaging for clients, that means we have about 60, 70 clients right now. And within those clients, a little less than a dozen, so a very small amount, they have my team, Grow Your Show. They've hired us in order to grow their podcast listener base. And we do a few things with that. We like do Facebook ads, YouTube ads, Google ads. We do banner ads. Sometimes we do email ad campaigns. And we've done some really cool things. And one of the things that works the absolute best, and in fact, I was interviewed on John Lee Dumas, JLD's Entrepreneur on Fire, about this as well. It's the private message campaign, because it's hard to achieve a better result than with what you can do with a private message campaign, reaching out directly to somebody. So I have this team that already does that. And I said, hey, I need you to divert some of your time and make sure that we need to get some guests on our show. And so what I basically had them do is go reach out to past guests from the show and ask for referrals. So it's like, hey, you've been on the show. You were a great guest. You were on episode 150 or whatever episode number that they were on. And we're looking for more great guests. So feel free to give us a few friends of yours that you think would be a good guest on the show. And I didn't have to worry about that. Yeah, granted, I did pay for it. I have virtual assistants that are getting paid somewhere between $3 or $4 or $5 or $6 an hour. Okay. So I have one of these virtual assistants, let's just say they're making $4.50 an hour. I have them reach out to 100 plus of my guests that have come on to the podcast already. And they're going to be able to send probably about 20 of these per hour. So in 5 hours times $4 or $5 an hour, I'm looking at $25 to send to 100 people. This is pretty remarkable, like having that virtual assistant, and I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to type to anybody. So that's one way that we did it. I had my VA, one of my virtual assistants, I had them reach out to past guests on the show and ask them for referrals. Another thing that I did is I went to some of the top people in podcasting that I know that serve other podcasters. And I asked them, because they've got a good network of other podcasters. And actually, for me, I only interview people who have podcasts. So it's called the Podcast on Podcasting. Of course, it's for podcasters by podcasters. So the people that I interview have a show as well. So I reach out to Alex Sanfilippo and Deirdre and a couple others, and I just say, hey, who do you recommend? Who would be a top choice for a guest on my show? So write it down. I also put this in. I said, and do you mind sending an email introduction, a warm email intro? Now, granted, Deirdre might listen to this and she'll hear that I had some SOPs in place. That means standard operating procedure, where one of the virtual assistants, a different one than we were talking about before, we've got these SOPs in place. And when somebody connects us to somebody to work with them, to hire us, a virtual assistant of mine automatically sends these emails, and it basically says, hey, thank you for connecting. This is what we do. This is how we do it. This is how you schedule with Adam. And I felt so bad because for some reason, there was just a disconnect where Deirdre, she connected us with, I don't know, probably more than 6 people. And maybe it was 5, maybe it was 6, maybe it was 7. Anyway, she connected us a good amount of people that are her friends. They're great podcasters. And just funny side tangent, Michelle from my team, I didn't know this until later. Michelle offered them to work with us. And I was like, no, that's not what we're trying to do. I'm trying to get guests. I'm in a crunch for getting good guests. And so anyway, that got all fixed and all worked out. But I think it's interesting. You got to be careful when you're onboarding quickly to be able to make sure that things are in place and everybody on your team knows what's going on. So I could have easily talked to Michelle and let her know these that are going to come in from Deirdre are going to be people that are coming on the podcast. I could have said that. Now I know. So over communication. So having a team helps. Standard operating procedure helps. And now the reach out process itself. So we talked about referrals. We talked about reaching out to people that you trust. We talked about reaching out to your old previous guests that have been on the show. We've mentioned a few different pieces. Now, here's a couple of other places you can go. PodMatch, write it down. And actually, if you're editing this episode, make sure PodMatch, the link is in the show notes. Alex Sanfilippo, good friend of mine, great guy, owns it. He runs it. I met him through podcasting, and we've just really hit it off. So the owner of PodMatch is a great guy. They do a great job. And apparently, I didn't know this, or I didn't take advantage of this. Apparently, you also can make money when you interview somebody off of PodMatch. So it's kind of cool because I think I pay 20 or 40 bucks a month, and I was happy to pay that. I was happy to pay whatever the cost is to be a part of PodMatch, more than happy to pay. But when I was talking to Alex Sanfilippo and asking him for some suggestions on people, he mentioned that if I interview, he goes, here's a bunch of people that I think are going to be great for your show. And as an added bonus, they're all on the PodMatch platform already. And that means you can make money when you interview them. I'm like, what? I can make money when I interview them? So it's kind of cool. It's not going to be a ton of money, but I think it's going to be something like 20 to 40 bucks per interview. And so if I pay 20 to 40 bucks per month and I'm just going to interview 6 people that he suggested, I've already won. That's 120 bucks ish of money made. And that's 20 bucks ish of money spent. So I'm netting 100 bucks that month. And all I'm doing is just interviewing people. So a great resource, PodMatch. If you're editing this episode, I want you to also add Podbooker. If you're listening, I want you to use PodMatch and Podbooker. Different people are on at different times doing different things. They're run in different ways. And you're going to have a lot of overlap where you're connecting with some of the same people, but also you're going to be able to make sure that you're outreaching to the right people and being able to have the right guests for your show. PodMatch and Podbooker help you become a guest for their shows too. And PodMatch and Podbooker allow you to get guests. So this is just a benefit. Reaching out to friends is a good way to get guests. Going to Facebook groups. So this is another thing that I did. I went to a Facebook group and I looked for people that were posting or talking about their show. And then I would just comment within the comments of the post that, hey, love what you're doing. Would love to interview you about blank, whatever they're talking about. But let's just say one of them talks about how do I get good guests for my show? Or they talk about how do I make money for my show? How do I monetize? Something like that. So I'll reach out, I'll read it, and I'll think to myself, this is good content. And then maybe they give like takeaways, maybe they give the steps to it. And I go, hey, these steps would be really valuable to my podcast listener. Would you be open to coming on my show and I can feature you on my show as a guest? That's basically all I say in the comments. And I would say probably 9 out of 10 times they say yes. And 1 out of 10 times they don't see it. So you get pretty good odds when you do that. So go to these Facebook groups, these Facebook communities. Another tip or trick that my mom did in the Facebook community. So what I'm telling you I'm doing is I'm only looking at the people that have posted. And if I like it, and if I believe in it, if I think it's going to be valuable to my listener, if it's going to be valuable to you, then I'll bring them on. And what others have done, an idea that my mom did, is she actually made a post in 1 or 2 of these places that was to connect with potential guests for her show. And she was able to get a lot of guests, whereas she was worried about it in the beginning. And now she's like, holy cow, I got plenty. And I remember reading a post in one of these Facebook podcast communities where my mother, she said, oh my gosh, I'm paraphrasing, of course. She said something like, oh my gosh, I didn't expect it. That was really cool. This group is just awesome because I was worried about getting guests. And now you guys got me the first 3 months of my guests all at once. And it's a lot of good people. Now, again, I'm paraphrasing. I don't have the post in front of me, but it was a post of gratitude and amazement that her goal was achieved in a very quick way just by making a post on one of these groups. So there's some ideas for you. Facebook groups, PodMatch, Podbooker. asking for referrals, reaching out to people that you see, and having your team reach out to previous guests as well. Now, let's take a break from the content. Let's take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to talk about calendar links, how to use them, the important email invitation, like how does this email invitation look? What is it going to say? And we're going to talk about making sure that you over communicate and tell a little story that actually gives a little bit more detail on that. So we'll talk about the calendar link, the email invitation, and making sure that you over communicate, or else people are not going to do what you need them to do. I'll see you in just a moment. Hey, my friend, as you know, this episode is sponsored by my company, GrowYourShow.com. We want you to be able to have the best tools at your disposal without costing you a whole arm and a leg. So right now you can get a free list of vetted equipment that like mics, mixers, webcams, sound treatment, editing software, everything that you need. I created the whole PDF with direct purchase links just to save you time and money, to help it be more convenient for you. So this free PDF will help you skip all the guesswork. If it's on there, it's vetted and approved by yours truly. And if it's not on there, it's probably not worth the money. So go ahead and get yours at growyourshow.com/PDF. Let's get back into the show. We are back talking about getting guests for your show. As a recap, we've already talked about having people on your team that maybe even virtual assistants where you might pay them $3, $4, $5, $6 an hour. We talked about having some standard operating procedures, what can go right, what can go wrong. We've talked about asking for referrals from people that you trust. We've talked about reaching out to previous guests and asking them to give us referrals. We talked about a couple of paid groups that you can be part of, which is PodMatch and Podbooker. We talked about utilizing Facebook groups, and the list goes on. And now we're going to be talking about three things. As I said right before the break, I want to talk about calendar link. I want to talk about the email invitation, what it should say. And I want to talk a little bit about making sure that you over communicate, because if you don't over communicate, you're going to under communicate. Let's dive into this. So first, let's talk about the calendar link. This is a live calendar that gets updated with anything that's put into your calendar that keeps you busy. It's going to make it so that people can't schedule. And you can also select like only one day. So I'm going to talk about Calendly. If you're editing this episode, please put Calendly, the resource Calendly, and hopefully an affiliate link so we can make 5 cents. Anyway, let's make sure that Calendly is in the show notes, because I think it's a very beneficial thing for another podcaster to use. And there are free, you can utilize Calendly for free. Like you don't even have to pay for anything. Now, can you pay? Yes. You can have like a professional account or something where you have all sorts of different things. But if you want it to be for free, you can set something up where it's just like podcast@yourwebsite.com. Okay. Podcast@yourwebsite.com. And then set up a Calendly with that. And basically what's going to happen is completely free. And it'll allow people to see the calendar when you're available and when you're not. And they can click as soon as it goes into Calendly, it goes into their virtual calendar, like a Google Calendar or Apple or whatever, and it'll go into yours. So it automatically gets set into your calendar, which is great. With Calendly, there's a few things that I do. I make sure to ask a few questions like, are you going to use headphones? Are you going to use a professional mic? Do you know that this is going to be video recorded? So you want to wear clothes and makeup, whatever you feel comfortable in. Are you going to wear that? So you're not showing up with your hair totally messed up, because we do record video. So in my Calendly, it says some of those things, and it also finds the date that they want, and it automatically gets set into their calendar and in mine. And then we get email reminders, which is great. So that's a resource that I want you to use. Then the email invitation. I use Google for my calendar. So basically I use a Google Calendar. So it's like blah, 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 blah @gmail.com, or I think it's called G Suite. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's called G Suite. But basically me and all of the managers in my company, we have Adam at Grow Your Show. We have somebody else at Grow Your Show. We have that person's name at growyourshow.com. And by utilizing G Suite, it can still be a Google email, but it doesn't end in gmail.com. It ends in yourwebsite.com. So inside of Google, there's an easy way to get a template. What you'll do, and I'm actually going to walk you through this real quick, is you'll just go to the settings and you will see all of the settings. So it's like settings, and then it's see all settings. And then you click on add-ons. You look for the add-ons, and there's a couple of different potential possibilities for an add-on. And one of those add-ons allows you to have a little template for you to be able to click on. So you click on add-ons or advanced. I think it changed recently to advanced. But then you just enable the templates. That's it. You just click on enable. There's enable and disable. So you go to add-ons or advanced within the settings, and then you enable these things called templates. Now, you write one email, and then you save that email as a template. And so what I've done, what my team has done, is I've got this email template that is an email invitation that basically says to my guest, here's what I need from you. I need a headshot and a bio. It's saying, I need you to schedule the interview. I need you to make sure that you have a mic and headphones, and that you are wearing what you want to wear, and your makeup and your hair is done the way that you want for video, because we are recording video also. It's not just audio. And so it's got these things in an email invitation used as a template through Google. By, again, you go settings, and then you go to add-ons or advanced, and then you just enable the templates. Now you can save any type of template that you want so that it's quicker. And can I tell you what the other thing that it has in our template is? It has click here to book your interview. And remember how we talked about using Calendly or some other type of calendar link? Well, this is where that link goes for people to be able to schedule for your podcast. This is exactly where you put it. So an email, it'll give them all the details that they need, and it'll give them the link that they need. So that's the idea of an email invitation. The way that I use this on Facebook, because of my SOP and my team, standard operating procedure, and my team, the way that I use getting people's emails is I actually find a lot of my guests on social media, Facebook, sometimes LinkedIn. And I will ask somebody, would you like to be on my podcast? I might have reached out to them already in a Facebook group. I might have been connected with them through a friend, but I will find them and I'll say, hey, do you want to come on? When they say yes, because they usually do, 9 out of 10 times, they're going to say yes. 1 out of 10, they're not going to see it. They're almost never going to say no. The way that I do it is I'll just take a quick screenshot. So before taking the screenshot, I need to get their email. So when they say, yes, I'd like to come on, I say, let me send you the invitation. All I need is your best email address. Let me send you the invite. What is your best email address? ? Now they send the invitation. They send their email address. What I now do is I screenshot that, and on most of our phones, we can just screenshot that. And I'm usually working on my phone when doing this with social media. So I will take that quick screenshot, and then my phone, it's an iPhone, it allows me to easily write on it. And so I always write for these, I always write in yellow, and I just put POP, P-O-P. Now, for me, POP means podcast on podcasting. So if you've got a podcast, like let's just say JLD, Entrepreneurs on Fire, EOF. Now, that's where I got to go on his show, and we talked about private messaging campaign and how effective it is. He, JLD, might put for his podcast, EOF, Entrepreneurs on Fire. Okay. Entrepreneurs on Fire. So for me, it's POP. Basically, I'll take that screenshot, I'll write POP, and then I will send it through WhatsApp or through email or through text or however I'm communicating to somebody on my team, Voxer, however I'm communicating to my virtual assistant or my local assistant, I will forward it to them. I will forward them a screenshot that says POP, So she or he knows that I need to invite this person to the podcast on podcasting. And it's got their name in it because this is the chat through Facebook, for example, and their name is at the top. And it's got their email address in it because they just sent me the email address. And this way, I can have somebody take care of that for me. This has really helped me a lot. And everything else is in there. Now, let's talk about over communicating. This woman named Lisa, she's going to come on my show, and she was suggested to me through either Deirdre or Alex Sanfilippo. Deirdre is one of the founders and owners of Capsho, and she's been on the show as well. Alex has been on the show at least once as well, and I've spoken at his conferences and been on his podcast. So these are great connections. So I think it was Deirdre that she connected me with some people, and one of them is Lisa. And Lisa had to laugh at me. She comes in and she's like, man, you are thorough. You are so thorough. And you like give all of the details and you don't want anything to go. And it's cool how everything is in the email, but then how you put everything in the calendar invitation as well. And she's like, there's really no room for error. And I laughed because there still is room for error. And I told her, I said, I don't want to call anyone stupid because it's not what it is. I think entrepreneurs like me, we want to get things out of our hands as fast as possible. We don't care about all the details. We may have been interviewed on many other podcasts. We probably have our own podcast if you're coming on my show. And so you kind of have a feel for how this goes. So I've got all of this detail, and she's asking like, it's funny that you figured out that you need to have all of this detail, right? And I basically said, yeah, this is just how it goes. So we were talking, and I said, a lot of entrepreneur types tend to skip a lot of those details. I'm not going to call anyone stupid, but I will say that some entrepreneurs are moving at the speed of light. So let's talk about this over communicating. Because she gave me a story after she laughed, and she goes, yeah, there's one person, I've got this in multiple places. She goes, right? Oh, the stories. I had a sales coach years back who, despite receiving no less than 3 reminders, she still looked at me blankly in the face when I asked her, where are her earbuds or headphones? Where are they? And she's like, I never knew that I was supposed to have that. And then she like waited. This person went through a co-working space until somebody could get her some headphones so that they could actually record. But I frequently do have people coming on my show and they forget to use a professional mic, even though I say it a bunch of times. They forget that they need headphones, or they think that they don't need headphones. And the problem is, if they're not using a mic, then we get bad sound quality. If they're not using a headphone, then half the time there's going to be a reverb, like my voice that comes out of their speaker so that they can hear me will go back into their microphone. And so it'll echo continuously. So I'm hearing myself twice. It's confusing. I can't even do the thing. So over communicate. It's not because people are dumb. It's because people don't pay attention to all the details, especially if they're very smart, especially if they have been doing this for a long time. They're going to think that they know it all. They're going to skip everything and they're just going to book it and they might forget. So I like to have it in multiple places. And going back to my Calendly and over communication combined, it makes them check off a box that says, I will have headphones. I will use a microphone. I do know that I'm getting my video recorded and that I should wear what I want to wear and look like I want to look. So it basically, if they don't click the button, they can't even book the episode. And now I'm going to share a tiny bit more SOP, just some details that were left out in the stories, because there's some other good stuff that is going to help you. You're always going to want a headshot and a bio. So in my email invitation, it says things I need from you immediately. I say immediately because if you just say, here's some things that I need for you before the interview, then the problem is many of us are procrastinators. And so we're going to put that off until the last minute. So I say, I need these things immediately. A professional headshot, short bio, and any links to your website or social media page you want to share with my audience. And so they'll send an email directly back about that. The next part, it says things that you will want to know or do. And it basically says, we use Zoom, we use video, audio and video. We want you to wear headphones and a mic and use a mic because of these reasons. The episodes usually air a little bit after we record, and we don't have to use the entire thing if we don't want to, or if it's bad, or if you are self-promoting. So there's just a bit of stuff. And then there's the read the fine print. And it's basically the legal agreement. It says, by participating in the podcast, you agree that Adam Adams and his representatives can record, edit, produce, distribute, promote, disseminate the interview in any manner, including but not limited to multiple podcasts, social media, and or YouTube channels. You agree to allow Grow Your Show, that's my company, to retain all rights to the produced media. Finally, you agree that Adam may use any and all recorded material for future in advertisements, promotional material, speeches, books, and other distribution. Finally, we reserve the right to not publish an episode if we feel it won't be valuable to our listener. Okay. And then it goes, here's some questions we may ask you. Who do you serve and how do you serve them? We may ask you, what challenges did you need to overcome in order to start your podcast? Or how do you find a great guest for your show? Or what podcast hacks do you want to share? Or what tools have been the most beneficial to you for automating the podcast process? Or what's your biggest challenge right now for podcasting? And then it goes, it's time for the interview. Now that you've read everything and the small print, you can book. And it says, here's our online schedule link right here. Click it, find it. And that's exactly how we work with podcasts. So I hope you're able to have a better system for your people. And I'll see you on the next episode. You're not alone if you're ready to either get your very first affordable microphone or if you're ready to upgrade your equipment to some legit podcasting studio equipment. Because on all of the forums over the last few months, I'm seeing this all the time. Even my own personal clients that work with my team, they're ready to get that next microphone. They're asking us for it. Additionally, when I'm on discovery calls with potential clients, they're always asking for this stuff. Hey, what mic do you recommend? Hey, what lighting do you recommend? What webcam should I be using? So many questions. And so what we did, my whole team has put together a PDF so that if you're one of those people who is looking to either get your very first affordable microphone, or if you're ready to upgrade your equipment to more professional podcast studio equipment, whether it's soundproofing or whatever, we've got you covered by going to growyourshow.com/PDF. And you can download the PDF for free, or right there on the webpage is everything that you would have and you don't need to download the PDF. Either way, just go to growyourshow.com/PDF, which will put you to the podcasting equipment that me and my team have personally vetted. I'll see you on the next episode.